Today was supposed to be the day I proposed to Olivia Carter, the woman I'd been planning my future with for 2 years. I had everything ready, the ring I'd saved months for, the perfect spot at the rooftop restaurant downtown, even coordinated with the staff to make it special. Olivia worked as a senior marketing manager at Pinnacle Digital, one of the city's most prestigious tech companies, and she always said she wanted something elegant and sophisticated. So I chose the most upscale venue I could afford, despite it costing me nearly my entire savings. I thought she'd be thrilled. I thought we'd be celebrating our engagement tonight, but instead she humiliated me in front of 50 strangers, calling me a delusional minimum wage dreamer who could never give her the life she deserved. What Olivia didn't know, what nobody knew, was that the company she bragged about working for, Pinnacle Digital, the place that made her feel so superior to me, I owned it. And tonight, everything was about to change. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The rooftop restaurant buzzed with the soft murmur of evening conversations and the gentle clinking of wine glasses. The city skyline stretched out beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, twinkling lights creating a perfect romantic backdrop. I adjusted my tie nervously, checking my watch for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Olivia was running late, as usual, but tonight I didn't mind. I wanted everything to be perfect. My name is Xander Stone, and for the past 2 years I'd been dating Olivia Carter, a senior marketing manager at Pinnacle Digital, one of the city's most successful tech companies. To everyone who knew us, we seemed like an unlikely pair. I worked as a freelance consultant. That's what I told people when they asked about my job. In reality, I did odd jobs, some tech support here and there, and lived in a modest apartment across town. Olivia, on the other hand, was everything I wasn't in the eyes of society. Successful, polished, ambitious, and constantly climbing the corporate ladder. But I loved her, or at least I thought I did. She had this way of making me feel like I could be better, like I could achieve more. When she talked about her work at Pinnacle Digital, her eyes would light up with passion and determination. She'd tell me about the big campaigns she was running, the executive meetings she attended, the bonuses she earned. I admired her drive, even if it sometimes made me feel inadequate. Tonight was different though. Tonight I was going to ask her to marry me. I'd spent months saving for the ring, a beautiful 2-carat diamond that had cost me nearly everything I had. The salesman at the jewelry store had looked at me skeptically when I'd paid in cash, probably wondering how someone like me could afford such an expensive piece. But I wanted to give Olivia something worthy of her, something that showed her how serious I was about our future together. The restaurant, Skyline Terrace, was the most upscale place I'd ever set foot in. The maitre d' had raised an eyebrow when I'd made the reservation, but my money was as good as anyone else's. I'd specifically requested table 12, right by the window with the best view of the city. I'd even coordinated with the staff to have champagne ready, and to dim the lights at just the right moment. Xander, Olivia's voice cut through my thoughts. I turned to see her approaching the table, but something was off. Instead of the excitement I'd expected to see in her eyes, there was something else: annoyance, maybe even disgust. "Olivia, you look beautiful," I said, standing to pull out her chair. She was wearing a sleek black dress that hugged her figure perfectly, her dark hair pulled back in an elegant updo. She always knew how to dress for success. "What is this place?" she asked, not even acknowledging my compliment. She glanced around the restaurant with a critical eye. "And why are all these people staring at us?" I looked around, confused. A few other diners had glanced our way, but that seemed normal for a busy restaurant. "I thought you'd like it," I said, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. "You always said you wanted somewhere elegant and sophisticated." Olivia sat down heavily, not waiting for me to help with her chair. "Xander, we need to talk." My heart sank. Those 4 words were never followed by anything good. "Is everything okay? You seem upset." "I am upset," she said, her voice carrying more than I'd expected. Nearby tables were definitely listening now. "Do you know what happened at work today?" I shook my head, genuinely confused. "No, what happened?" "Julian Reed. Happened." She said the name like it explained everything. "He's the new regional director of business development. Harvard MBA, Fortune 500 experience, drives a Tesla Model S, and lives in a penthouse downtown. Do you know what he asked me today?" I felt a cold dread settling in my stomach. "What did he ask you?" "He asked me out to dinner. A real dinner, at Le Bernardin." Not some, she gestured dismissively at our surroundings. Middle-class tourist trap like this. The words hit me like a physical blow. Olivia, I don't understand. I thought we were happy. I thought, happy? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. The sound was sharp and bitter, carrying across the suddenly quiet restaurant. Xander, look around you. Really look. Do you see what's wrong with this picture? I glanced around the restaurant again, trying to see what she saw. It was elegant, expensive, exactly the kind of place she'd always talked about wanting to go. You don't fit here, she said bluntly. We don't fit here. I'm wearing a dress that cost more than your monthly rent, sitting in a restaurant that you probably had to save for months to afford, pretending that this is some grand romantic gesture when really it just highlights how different we are. The other diners weren't even pretending not to listen anymore. I could feel their eyes on us, could hear the whispered conversations starting at nearby tables. My face burned with embarrassment, but I tried to push through it. Olivia, I know I'm not rich, I said quietly, hoping to keep this between us. But I love you. I've been planning this for months. I want to. Planning what? She interrupted, her voice rising again. What exactly have you been planning, Xander? This wasn't how it was supposed to go. In my mind, I'd imagined her surprise and joy when I got down on one knee. I'd pictured her tears of happiness, the applause from other diners, the perfect beginning to our life together. Instead, I was fumbling with the ring box in my pocket, while she tore me apart in front of strangers. I've been planning to ask you to marry me, I said, the words coming out in a rush. The silence that followed was deafening. Olivia stared at me like I'd just told her I was planning to rob a bank. Then, slowly, she started to laugh. It wasn't the musical laugh I'd fallen in love with. It was harsh and mocking, growing louder with each passing second. Marry you? She repeated, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. Xander, are you completely delusional? What exactly would you be offering me in this fantasy marriage of yours? Your one-bedroom apartment with the broken air conditioning, your 15-year-old Honda Civic, your exciting career as a freelance consultant that barely pays your bills. I felt like I was drowning. Every word she spoke was designed to humiliate me, and it was working. I know I don't have much now, but I can work harder. I can. You can what? She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You can suddenly become someone you're not. You can magically develop ambition. You can transform into the kind of man who actually deserves someone like me. The entire restaurant had gone quiet now. Even the servers had stopped what they were doing to watch our train wreck of a conversation. I could feel dozens of eyes on us, could see phones being subtly raised to record what was clearly about to become a viral public meltdown. Julian Reed makes more in a month than you make in a year, Olivia continued, her voice echoing in the silent restaurant. He drives a car worth more than everything you own combined. He can take me to real restaurants, real events, introduce me to real people who matter. What can you offer me, Xander? What exactly makes you think you're worthy of someone who works at Pinnacle Digital? That last comment hit something deep inside me. She had no idea how ironic her words were, but I wasn't ready to reveal that yet. I was too stunned, too hurt, too focused on the fact that the woman I'd loved for 2 years was systematically destroying me in front of a room full of strangers. I offer you love, I said quietly. One last desperate attempt to salvage something from this disaster. Love? Olivia laughed again, the sound echoing off the restaurant's high ceilings. Love doesn't pay for the life I want, Xander. Love doesn't get me into the social circles I need to be in. Love doesn't advance my career or buy me the things I deserve. I need a man who can match my ambition, not hold me back with his mediocrity. She grabbed her purse from the table and slung it over her shoulder. This is over, Xander. We're over. Find someone more suited to your level. Someone who'll be impressed by chain restaurants and discount jewelry. As for me, I have a real future to build with someone who actually matters. And with that, she walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the restaurant's marble floor. The sound seemed to echo forever in the stunned silence she left behind. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I sat there for a long moment, the ring box still clutched in my sweaty palm, surrounded by the stares and whispers of 50 strangers who had just witnessed my complete and utter humiliation. But what none of them knew, what Olivia didn't know, was that her speech about Pinnacle Digital, about deserving better, about needing someone who actually matters, was about to become the most ironic statement of her life. Because tomorrow I was going to show her exactly who she just walked away from. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear Olivia's voice echoing through that restaurant, her words cutting through me like knives. Find someone more suited to your level. Someone who actually matters. What exactly makes you think you're worthy of someone who works at Pinnacle Digital? By morning, the hurt had crystallized into something else entirely: resolve. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, adjusting the collar of a custom-tailored Armani suit that had been hanging in my closet for months, waiting for the right occasion. My reflection looked different somehow, sharper, more focused. The man staring back at me wasn't the freelance consultant who'd been humiliated last night. This was Xander Stone, CEO and founder of Pinnacle Digital. Yes, you heard that right. The company that Olivia was so proud to work for. The place that made her feel superior to me. The business that she claimed gave her status and worth. I had built it from nothing 5 years ago. The irony was almost too perfect to be real. I'd started Pinnacle Digital in my garage, with nothing but a laptop, a brilliant idea for streamlining corporate marketing automation, and an unshakable belief that I could revolutionize how businesses approached digital customer engagement. Within 2 years we'd secured our first major client. Within 3 we'd moved into our downtown headquarters. By year 4 we were pulling in 8-figure annual revenues and had attracted top talent from across the industry, including Olivia Carter, who joined us 8 months ago with impressive credentials and an even more impressive interview performance. The whole time we'd been dating, she'd had no idea that her delusional minimum wage dreamer boyfriend was actually her ultimate boss. I'd maintained my cover story carefully, always deflecting questions about my work, always paying for things in cash, always meeting her away from anywhere she might recognize me. It hadn't been easy, but I'd wanted to know that someone could love me for who I was, not what I owned. Last night had answered that question definitively. I drove to Pinnacle Digital's headquarters in my real car. Not the 15-year-old Honda Civic that Olivia had mocked, but a midnight black Porsche 911 Turbos that I kept in a private garage downtown. The building rose 37 stories into the Seattle skyline, its sleek glass exterior reflecting the morning sun. The name Pinnacle Digital gleamed in brushed steel letters across the top floor. My building, my company, my empire. I parked in my reserved spot, the one marked CEO in the executive garage, and took the private elevator to the 37th floor. My assistant Jennifer looked up in surprise as I walked past her desk. "Mr. Stone, I wasn't expecting you until this afternoon. The board meeting isn't until..." "Change of plans," I said, not breaking stride toward my office. "I need you to call an emergency all-hands meeting. Every employee, every department, conference room A. 1 hour. Jennifer scrambled to keep up with me. "Sir, that's over 400 people. Should I ask what this is regarding?" I paused at my office door, my hand on the handle. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the entire city spread out below us. Somewhere down there was Olivia, probably getting ready for work, probably thinking about her dinner with Julian Reed, probably congratulating herself on escaping from someone she considered beneath her. "Tell them," I said slowly, "that the CEO has an important announcement about company culture and employee conduct." An hour later, conference room A was packed beyond capacity. Employees lined the walls, crowded into every available chair, and spilled out into the hallway. The energy in the room was electric with curiosity and nervous anticipation. In 5 years of running Pinnacle Digital, I'd never called an emergency all-hands meeting. I stood at the front of the room, looking out at faces I'd grown to know well over the years. These were good people, talented people, people who'd helped build something extraordinary. And somewhere in this crowd was Olivia Carter, probably wondering why her mysterious CEO had suddenly decided to address the entire company. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the room's sound system. "Thank you all for gathering on such short notice. I know this is unusual, but I have something important to discuss with all of you today." I spotted Olivia near the back of the room, her face a mask of professional attention. She was wearing a sharp blue blazer, and had her hair pulled back in the same style she'd worn to the restaurant last night. She looked every inch the successful marketing executive she believed herself to be. For the past 5 years, I continued, Pinnacle Digital has been built on core values: innovation, integrity, respect, and excellence. These aren't just words on our website. They're the foundation of everything we do here. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew the company values. They were posted in every conference room and meeting space. However, I said, my tone growing more serious, it has come to my attention that not all employees are living up to these standards. Some individuals have been demonstrating behavior that runs counter to everything this company represents. The room grew quieter. This was clearly not going to be a routine corporate pep talk. Last night, I said, letting my gaze sweep across the room before settling on Olivia's increasingly pale face, I witnessed something that shocked me to my core. I watched a Pinnacle Digital employee publicly humiliate another person based on their perceived social status and economic worth. Olivia's eyes had gone wide. She was starting to understand that this wasn't a coincidence. This employee, I continued, my voice growing stronger, mocked someone for their living situation, their career, and their financial resources. They suggested that people are only worth what they earn, and that love and character are meaningless compared to material success. The room was dead silent now. 400 people holding their breath, waiting to see where this was going. They said, and I quote, "What exactly makes you think you're worthy of someone who works at Pinnacle Digital?" I let those words hang in the air for a moment, as if working for this company somehow makes someone superior to others, as if the name on your badge determines your worth as a human being. I could see Olivia shrinking into herself, trying to become invisible among her colleagues, but there was nowhere to hide. "Olivia Carter," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Please step forward." The crowd turned as one to look at her. Olivia stood frozen for a moment, her face cycling through emotions: confusion, recognition, horror, and finally, devastating realization. "Miss Carter," I said again when she didn't move, "I believe you have something to say to everyone here about what constitutes worthy behavior from a Pinnacle Digital employee." Slowly, like she was walking to her own execution, Olivia made her way through the crowd toward the front of the room. With each step, I could see the pieces falling into place in her mind. The mysterious CEO she'd never met, the boyfriend she'd just dumped for being mediocre, the company she was so proud to work for. When she reached the front of the room, she looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before: complete and utter devastation. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said to the room, though my eyes never left Olivia's face, "I'd like you all to meet the woman who decided last night that I wasn't worthy of someone who works at Pinnacle Digital. The woman who called me a delusional minimum wage dreamer, and suggested I find someone more suited to my level." The gasps and whispers that erupted from the crowd were audible even over the room's sound system. "The woman," I continued, "who had no idea that the man she was humiliating in front of 50 strangers was the same man who founded this company, who built it from nothing, and who signs her paychecks every month." Olivia's legs seemed to give out. She grabbed onto a nearby chair for support, her face now completely drained of color. "Miss Carter," I said, my voice taking on the cold professional tone I used for difficult business decisions, "you're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out in 5 minutes, and your personal belongings will be mailed to you." The room erupted. 400 voices talking at once, expressing shock, disbelief, and in some cases, what sounded like satisfaction. Olivia had apparently not been as well liked as she'd thought. But I wasn't done yet. "There's one more thing," I said, raising my voice to cut through the noise. The room fell silent again. Miss Carter's new boyfriend, Julian Reed, who apparently represents everything she valued in a man, was fired from his previous company for embezzling expense accounts. He currently owes $200,000 in back taxes and is facing potential federal charges. His Tesla is leased, his penthouse is rented, and his Harvard MBA is from an online program that shut down for fraud. Olivia made a sound that was somewhere between a sob and a gasp. "I had him investigated this morning," I continued. "Madam, it took my security team exactly 47 minutes to uncover his entire fraudulent background. Interesting choice in men, Miss Carter. Very revealing about your character judgment. I gestured to two security guards who had appeared. Gentlemen, please escort Miss Carter from the building. She's no longer employed here. As the security guards approached, Olivia finally found her voice. Xander, she whispered, loud enough for the front rows to hear. Please, I didn't know. I never would have it. You never would have what? I interrupted. Been honest about who you really are. You showed me exactly who you are last night, Miss Carter. You showed this entire room who you are. Someone who judges people based on what they own, rather than who they are. Someone who values status over character. Someone who represents everything this company stands against. The security guards reached her, gently but firmly taking her arms. Wait, she said desperately. The ring, you were going to propose. Xander, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small velvet box, holding it up for everyone to see. This ring? I asked. The one that cost me everything I owned, according to your assessment. I opened the box, revealing the 2-carat diamond that caught the conference room lights and threw sparkles across the walls. This ring cost me exactly 47 minutes of Pinnacle Digital's daily revenue, I said. In other words, Miss Carter, it was the equivalent of what you might spend on lunch. The crowd gasped again. The number of people recording this with their phones had grown substantially. But you're right about one thing, I continued. It would have been wasted on you. Because you're not worthy of it. Not because of what you own, or what you earn, but because of who you choose to be. As security began leading her away, Olivia turned back one last time. Xander, please, she called out. I made a mistake. We can fix this. I love you. I looked at her for a long moment. This woman who had systematically destroyed me in front of strangers less than 24 hours ago. No, Miss Carter, I said quietly, but loud enough for the room to hear. You love money. You love status. You love the idea of climbing social ladders. But you don't love me. You never did. If you had, you would have seen past the disguise. And with that, Olivia Carter disappeared from my life, escorted out of the building she'd been so proud to work in, away from the company that had made her feel superior, and into an uncertain future where her actions would follow her everywhere. The room erupted in applause as the doors closed behind her. The aftermath of Olivia's firing spread through the Seattle business community like wildfire. Within hours, #Pinnacle Digital proposal was trending on social media, with dozens of employees sharing videos and photos from the conference room confrontation. The story made local news by evening, and by the next morning, it had been picked up by major business publications. Tech CEO fires employee after public humiliation at failed proposal, read the headline in Seattle Business Journal. The article painted Olivia in an unflattering light, describing her as an example of toxic workplace culture and social climate gone wrong. But I wasn't satisfied yet. Something about the whole situation felt unfinished, like a book with missing chapters. 3 days after the conference room incident, I was working late in my office when Jennifer buzzed my intercom. Mr. Stone, there's a woman here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. Her name is Olivia Carter. I leaned back in my leather chair, looking out at the city lights twinkling below. I'd wondered when she'd show up. In my experience, people like Olivia never accepted defeat gracefully. Send her up, I said, but have security wait outside my office. 5 minutes later, Olivia walked through my office doors looking like a completely different person from the confident marketing executive I'd known. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her designer clothes wrinkled, and her eyes were red-rimmed from what looked like days of crying. Xander, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for seeing me. I gestured to the chair across from my desk without saying a word. She sat down carefully, like she was afraid any sudden movement might make me change my mind about letting her in. I've been thinking about what you said, she began, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. About who I am, about what I value. And you're right. You're absolutely right. I remained silent, studying her face. This wasn't the arrogant woman who'd humiliated me at Skyline Terrace. This was someone who'd been broken down completely, stripped of the confidence that came from her job, her status, her sense of superiority. "I've lost everything," she continued, tears starting to flow down her cheeks. "Julian won't return my calls. None of my friends will talk to me. Every company I've applied to has already heard about what happened. My LinkedIn profile has hundreds of comments calling me a gold digger and worse." She pulled out her phone and showed me the screen. Her notifications were filled with angry messages, mocking comments, and what looked like job rejections. "I had to move back in with my parents," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm 32 years old, and I'm sleeping in my childhood bedroom, because no one will hire me. Do you know what that feels like?" I did know what that felt like, actually. I'd slept in my childhood bedroom for months, when I was first starting Pinnacle Digital, back when every investor had turned me down, and I was living off ramen noodles and shiri. But I didn't tell her that. "The local news wants to interview me," she continued. "They want me to be the poster child for entitled millennials and workplace toxicity. Everyone wants to make an example out of me." She looked up at me with desperate eyes. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I said terrible things to you. But I'm begging you, Xander, please, give me one chance to make this right." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my desk. "What exactly are you asking for, Olivia?" "A chance to prove I've changed," she said quickly. "A chance to show you that I'm not the person who said those awful things to you. I'll do anything, anything at all." The word anything hung in the air between us. I'd heard desperate people make that promise before, and they rarely understood what they were actually offering. "Anything," I repeated. She said, without hesitation. "I'll public apologize. I'll donate money to charity. I'll volunteer at homeless shelters. I'll work for minimum wage. Whatever you want me to do to prove that I've learned from this." I was quiet for a long moment, considering her proposal. Part of me, the part that had genuinely cared for her for 2 years, felt sorry for the broken woman sitting across from me. But another part, the part that remembered her cruel laughter echoing through that restaurant, wanted to see just how far she was willing to go. "All right," I said finally. "I'll give you one chance. But it comes with conditions." Hope flickered in her eyes. "What conditions?" I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a tablet, quickly typing up a document. "You're going to write a public apology letter, admitting everything you did wrong and taking full responsibility for your actions. It will be published in the Seattle Business Journal, posted on Pinnacle Digital's website, and shared across all our social media platforms." She nodded eagerly. "Yes, I can do that. You're going to work as an unpaid intern at Millfield Community Center for 30 days. I continued. "They provide services for homeless individuals and low-income families. The kind of people you clearly believe are beneath you. You'll clean bathrooms, serve food, do whatever they need." Her face paled slightly, but she nodded again. "Okay." "And finally," I said, my voice growing colder, "you're going to stand in front of Pinnacle Digital's headquarters every day for a week, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., holding a sign that says I judge someone by their bank account instead of their character, and I was wrong. You'll face whatever reactions you get from employees, the public, and the media." The hope in her eyes faltered. "In front of the building, where everyone can see me." "Where everyone can see you," I confirmed. "The same way everyone could see you humiliating me at that restaurant. You said you'd do anything, Olivia." "This is anything." She sat in silence, for nearly a minute, clearly struggling with the idea of such public humiliation. I could practically see her weighing her options: accept my conditions and face weeks of embarrassment, or refuse and remain blacklisted from every decent job in the city. "If I do all of this," she finally asked, "will you give me another chance? Not just professionally, but personally?" I looked at her carefully. Even now, even after everything, she was still trying to negotiate for more than she deserved. "Complete all 3 conditions to my satisfaction," I said, "and I'll consider removing your termination from being marked as for cause in your employment file. That will make you eligible for hire at other companies."
It wasn't what she wanted to hear, but it was more than she had any right to expect. What about us? She pressed. What about our relationship?
There is no us, Olivia, I said firmly. There hasn't been since you chose to destroy me in public rather than simply breaking up with me privately. But if you complete these conditions, at least you'll have a chance to rebuild your career somewhere else. She wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders, some of her old determination returning. Okay, she said. I'll do it. All of it. Good, I said, printing out the document I'd been typing. Sign this agreement, and you can start tomorrow. She read through the contract quickly, her face growing more pale with each detail. The document laid out exactly what she would be doing, for how long, and made it clear that any failure to complete the full program would result in additional legal action for breach of contract. But she signed it. As she handed the contract back to me, she looked up with something that might have been her old confidence. Xander, I know you think I'm just doing this to get back into your good graces, but I really have learned something from all this. I realize now how shallow and materialistic I was, how much I hurt you. I filed the contract in my desk drawer and looked at her with neutral expression. We'll see, won't we? Over the next week, I watched from my office window as Olivia stood in front of our building every day, holding her sign of shame. The first day, dozens of employees stopped to take pictures and post them online. Some were sympathetic, others were mocking. A few even brought her coffee, or offered encouragement. But the day, the media attention had died down and she was mostly ignored by passers-by. By the fifth day, she looked utterly defeated, standing alone with her sign while the world moved around her. On the seventh and final day, I decided to go down and speak with her. How are you holding up? I asked, approaching her position near the building's main entrance. She looked up at me, her face tired but determined. I'm making it through, she said. Only 23 more days at the community center. Any regrets about taking this deal? She was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. No, she said finally. I deserve this. I deserve to understand what it feels like to be judged and humiliated publicly. Maybe if I'd experienced this before, I wouldn't have been so quick to do it to someone else. It was the first thing she'd said that actually sounded genuine. I watched the security footage from our breakup dinner, I told her. Did you know that? Her eyes widened. Security footage. Skyline Terrace has cameras everywhere. I had them send me the recordings. I pulled out my phone and showed her a frame from the video. Her face twisted with contempt as she spoke about my level. It's interesting, watching it back. You can actually see the exact moment when you decided I wasn't worth your time anymore. She looked at the image and flinched. I look so cruel. You were cruel, I agreed. The question is whether that's who you really are, or just who you became when you thought it would benefit you. Before she could answer, my phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and felt my blood run cold. The message was from an unknown number. Enjoying your little revenge fantasy. I have information about Olivia that might interest you. Meet me at Meridian Coffee, 3 p.m. today. Come alone. A friend. I looked up at Olivia, who was still studying the photo on my phone with obvious shame. Something about this whole situation had felt too convenient, too neat, and now, apparently, I was about to find out why. Olivia, I said carefully, is there anything else you need to tell me about that night? About Julian? About anything that happened before or after our dinner? Her face went white. What do you mean? I said, studying her reaction closely, that I have a feeling this story isn't over yet. And as I looked into her suddenly terrified eyes, I realized I was probably right. 3 o'clock found me sitting in a corner booth at Meridian Coffee, one of those trendy places with exposed brick walls and baristas who took their craft seriously. I'd arrived 15 minutes early, partly out of curiosity and partly from years of business training, that punctuality was power. I was halfway through a black coffee when a woman approached my table. She was probably in her early 30s, with auburn hair pulled back in a professional but relaxed style, wearing a well-tailored navy blazer over dark jeans. Something about her seemed familiar, but I couldn't place where I might have seen her before. Mr. Stone? She asked, extending her hand. I'm Harper Lane. Thank you for meeting me on such short notice. Harper Lane. The name clicked suddenly. She was a freelance investigative journalist, who'd written several pieces about corporate ethics for major publications. I'd read her work before. She had a reputation for being thorough, fair, and uncompromising when it came to the truth. Lane, I said, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm and confident. I have to admit, I'm curious about why an investigative journalist wants to meet with me about my ex-girlfriend. She sat down across from me, declining my offer to buy her a coffee. Because your ex-girlfriend isn't exactly who she's been pretending to be, she said, without preamble. I've been investigating corporate espionage cases for the past 6 months, and Olivia Carter's name came up in connection with some very interesting activities. I leaned forward, intrigued despite myself. What kind of activities? Information theft, primarily. It appears Miss Carter has been selling confidential employee data and internal company communications to competitors. Not just from Pinnacle Digital, but from her previous 3 employers as well. The revelation hit me like a cold wave. Are you saying she was a corporate spy? I'm saying she was running a side business that involved monetizing insider information. Harper replied, pulling out a tablet and showing me several documents. Bank records, email chains, transaction histories. She's made approximately $300,000 over the past 2 years, selling everything from employee salary data to upcoming project announcements. I stared at the evidence spread across her screen. Olivia's name was everywhere, connected to dozens of transactions with competing firms. How did you discover this? One of her victims came forward, Harper explained. A woman named Charlotte Green, who worked with Olivia at her previous company. Charlotte suspected something was wrong when confidential information from a project she was leading ended up in a competitor's proposal word for word. She hired me to investigate. Harper's professionalism was evident in every word, but there was something else, a genuine concern that went beyond just doing her job. I realize this might be difficult to hear, given your personal history with her, but I felt you deserved to know the truth. Actually, I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. It explains a lot. Her sudden interest in my work, her questions about Pinnacle Digital's operations. I thought she was just being supportive. Mr. Stone, Harper said, her tone softening slightly. I want you to know that your handling of the situation has been exemplary. The way you've insisted she complete genuine community service rather than just destroying her completely, it shows real character. Something about the way she said it made me look at her more carefully. This wasn't just professional courtesy, there was genuine admiration in her voice. I have to ask, I said, is there a story here you're planning to publish? Harper shook her head. The corporate espionage angle, yes. But your personal situation, that's not my business to report. Some things should remain private. Over the next hour we discussed the legal implications of Olivia's activities, and how to ensure other companies were warned about her methods. But gradually, our conversation shifted to other topics, her work as a journalist, my experience building Pinnacle Digital, our shared frustration with how technology was often used to exploit rather than empower people. Harper was brilliant, not just intelligent, but insightful in a way that made me see familiar topics from completely new angles. She asked thoughtful questions about business ethics, listened carefully to my answers, and shared her own experiences investigating corporate wrongdoing with passion, but without bitterness. I should probably let you get back to your day, she said finally, glancing at her watch. I just wanted to make sure you had all the facts. Actually, I said, surprising myself, would you like to continue this conversation over dinner? I'd love to hear more about your work, and I have a feeling we've barely scratched the surface. She smiled, the first genuinely warm expression I'd seen from her. I'd like that very much. That dinner led to another, and then to long walks around the city discussing everything from journalism ethics, to startup challenges, to our shared love of obscure historical documentaries. Harper was everything Olivia wasn't: intellectually curious, professionally accomplished in her own right, and completely unimpressed by material wealth. When I mentioned living in a penthouse downtown, she was more interested in the view than the price tag. 3 weeks later, my grandfather visited Pinnacle Digital for our monthly lunch meeting. We were reviewing quarterly reports when he noticed me checking my phone more frequently than usual. You seem distracted today, he observed, with the sharp attention that had made him successful in business for 50 years. Just coordinating dinner plans, I admitted. I'm seeing someone. His eyebrows rose. The fired marketing woman is back. No, someone completely different. Her name is Harper Lane. She's an investigative journalist. A journalist? He looked concerned. Xander, that could be complicated for business. She's not that kind of journalist, I assured him. She focuses on corporate ethics and fraud prevention. Actually, she's the one who uncovered evidence that Olivia was involved in corporate espionage. We spent the rest of lunch discussing Harper's work and my growing feelings for her. By the end of the meal, even my grandfather seemed impressed. She sounds like a woman of substance, he said. Someone who's built her own reputation, rather than trying to climb on yours. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely optimistic about the future. Harper represented everything I'd thought I wanted. Intelligence, integrity, independence, and a genuine interest in making the world better through her work. I was falling in love again, and this time, it felt real. 6 weeks into my relationship with Harper, I was working late at the office when my security desk called up. "Mr. Stone, there's a woman downstairs asking to see you. Says it's urgent and about Harper Lane. Her name is Olivia Carter." I hadn't seen or heard from Olivia since she'd completed her community service requirements a month ago. True to my word, I'd had her termination record adjusted, and she'd managed to find a job with a smaller marketing firm across town. "Send her up," I said, curious despite myself. Olivia entered my office looking healthier than I'd seen her in months. The community service had apparently been good for her. She seemed more grounded, less desperate. "Xander, I'm sorry to bother you," she began, "but I have to tell you something about Harper. Something you need to know." I gestured for her to sit, but remained standing myself. "What about Harper?" Olivia pulled out her phone and showed me a series of screenshots. "I've been following her work since you two started dating, partly out of curiosity, and partly because I still care about you, even if we can't be together." The screenshot showed email exchanges between Harper and someone named M. Caldwell, at Pinnacle Digital's biggest competitor, Nexus Corp. "Read this one," Olivia said, pointing to a message dated from 2 weeks ago. "The relationship is progressing perfectly. X trusts me completely now. Should have access to the Q4 development plans within days. The Pinnacle AI project details will be worth every penny you're paying me." My blood ran cold. "Where did you get these?" Charlotte Green, the woman who originally hired Harper to investigate corporate espionage. She discovered Harper was selling information to multiple companies while pretending to expose others. Harper's been playing both sides for years. Olivia showed me bank records indicating payments to Harper from at least 6 different corporations, all competitors of companies she'd supposedly been investigating. "Xander," Olivia said, quietly, "Harper didn't find me by accident. She targeted you specifically after our breakup went viral. The whole corporate espionage story about me, it was all fabricated to make her look trustworthy, while she got close to you." I stared at the evidence, feeling like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. The woman I'd fallen in love with, the woman who'd seemed so different from Olivia, was actually far worse. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Olivia looked at me with sad but honest eyes. "Because despite everything I did wrong, I never sold your secrets to your enemies. Harper has." That evening I met Harper at our usual restaurant, watching her carefully, as she smiled, and talked about her latest article. Everything about her seemed different now. Calculated, performed, fake. How had I missed the sign? "Harper," I interrupted her mid-sentence about press freedom, "I need to ask you something important." "Of course," she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. The gesture that once warmed my heart now made my skin crawl. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots Olivia had provided. "Can you explain these?" Harper's face went through a fascinating transformation. Surprise, recognition, fear, and finally, cold calculation. For a moment I saw her real face, the one she'd been hiding behind months of perfect girlfriend behavior. "Xander," she said slowly, "I can explain everything." "Please do," I said, leaning back in my chair. "I'm particularly interested in the part where you called our relationship progressing perfectly, while selling my company's secrets." Harper glanced around the restaurant, probably calculating whether she could salvage this situation or if she needed to cut her losses. "Look," she said, dropping the sweet girlfriend act entirely, "you're a smart man. You understand how business works. I provided a service to multiple clients, including gathering competitive intelligence. It's not personal, not personal." I almost laughed. "You made me fall in love with you as part of a business transaction." "You fell in love with an idea of me," Harper corrected coldly. "Just like you fell in love with an idea of Olivia. You don't actually know either of us." She stood up,
straightening her blazer with the same professional confidence I'd once admired. The difference between Olivia and me is that I'm honest about what I am. She tried to convince herself she loved you. I never had those delusions. Get out, I said, quietly. Xander, get out before I call security. Harper left without another word, and I sat alone in the restaurant, where we'd shared so many seemingly perfect evenings. 2 weeks later, I was in my office reviewing the security upgrades we'd implemented after Harper's betrayal, when Jennifer buzzed in. Mr. Stone, there's a young woman here from the Charity Foundation asking if you'd like to meet their new volunteer coordinator. She seems very nice. I looked out at the Seattle skyline, thinking about trust and vulnerability, and the price of letting people close. Tell her I'm not interested, I said. And Jennifer, going forward, I'm not accepting any personal meetings. Business only. Are you sure, sir? I thought about Mary's public humiliation, about Harper's calculated manipulation, about the 2 women who had systematically destroyed my faith in human connection. I'm sure, I said. Some lessons are worth learning only once. I turned back to my work, alone in my office 37 floors above the city, exactly where I belonged. From now on, the only person I would trust completely was myself. It was a lonely decision, but it was a safe one. And safety, I had learned, was worth more than love. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.